Hello, I'm back again. This is Charles Traylor. I'm the general manager for Archline.com, which is a wide area network of collaborating architects and engineers who come together on an as-needed basis to provide architectural Revit working drawings and AutoCAD working drawings for other architects and engineers throughout the United States. As I mentioned in my last video, I had been in business, I guess, about 18 years when a recession came rolling through Texas and Dallas specifically, where I was working and living. And it just wiped out everything. The owner of the Dallas Cowboys, a former governor of the state of Texas, both went bankrupt. We lost two major international banks that were rated in the top 10 banks internationally, which was Republic National Bank and First National Bank. And I had a series of financial reversals with some of the clients that I was doing business with, and ended up liquidating my firm. And I looked around and tried to decide what I was going to do next, and couldn't get a job in Dallas, and just kind of accidentally through some contacts I made at the National Convention of the American Institute of Architects, which was held in St. Louis that year. They were holding a job fair, and there was some representatives there from Media 5 in Honolulu that were recruiting people to work as project managers on a contract basis for them in Honolulu. Well, that looked pretty attractive. They said that they had been putting ads in the paper over there in Honolulu and running them for 30 days and didn't have anybody answering the ads. And so we negotiated a deal, and I ended up taking Corinne, my wife, over there, and found that when we got there were a number of other architects that had been imported from the mainland, just like me. Most of them were from Oklahoma, and we all kind of got to get acquainted with one another, and we were working for about a half a dozen different large firms in downtown Honolulu. There was so much work going on at that time that the state bird of Hawaii became known as the building crane. And when Crane and I moved into our condominium there, we saw probably, I don't know, almost 24 high-rise cranes just from the vantage point we had of the lanai on our unit. And the other architects and I that were working for these other firms, we got together for lunch once a week, every Thursday at a little place called the Bishop Street Cafe. And we sort of dubbed ourselves the Old Farts Club because most of us had at least a little bit of gray hair, if not balding up on top. And we traded war stories about the various opportunities and constraints each of us had experienced in working with the firms that we were with. And there was a new technology that had emerged in town, well, actually throughout the nation and the world, called computer-aided drafting and drawing, acronym CAD. And we sort of developed a consensus because everybody's having a lot of difficulty with this. It presented lots of opportunities, but lots of constraints. And the consensus was that somebody that was an architect should probably back away from the fray and set up a company that didn't do anything except specialize in producing CAD working drawings for other architects. Well, I put all these conversations in the back of my mind for safekeeping. Didn't think too much about it for a while. And while I was working there in Honolulu, the technology of electronic graphics transmissions and collaboration and communications quietly moved forward. And meanwhile, there are a lot of architectural and construction firms in Honolulu that couldn't get any AutoCAD work done. And everybody in Hawaii was so busy they just couldn't get anybody to do their work for them. Still, back in Texas, everybody was in a deep recession. So I contacted a Dallas architect and arranged for him to do AutoCAD work for firms that I had contact with there in Honolulu. And I started collecting and distributing work product. And about the only way we could do that, other than sending everything back and forth by Federal Express, we had what was called a U.S. robotics modem that was hooked into an electronic bulletin board, and it could transmit information back and forth between Honolulu and Dallas at the rate of 19,200 baud, which is not much more than a dial-up connection. It's really very slow. and we had to have a modem at each end of every connection, and these modems cost about $1,000 each, so it was not a cheap proposition to get into. Okay, the next several videos that I'll be presenting, and you need to look for my email about this, is going to be concerned with how all this progressed, how Honolulu eventually hit the skids, and Krenau hit a tipping point and went back to Dallas and started up the enterprise that eventually became Archline CAD Services Ltd, and then eventually Archline.com. So in the meantime, I'd like to ask you, what do you think? You interested in the possibilities of our doing business together? If you'd like to find out more about what I can do for you, give me a telephone call at 214-304-2850. Call me anytime, day or night, or send me an email at archline@archline.com. My schedule runs around the clock throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout the year, 24/7, 365.